Have you ever ordered a pizza and told yourself you're just gonna have one or two slices, and then all of a sudden 3 or 4 slices later, you're wondering how you got to that point? Hey there, it's Mish, and today I wanted to talk to you about problem foods. And these are foods that get in the way of your weight loss or health goals, either because you have trouble not eating them when they're around, or because you tend to overeat on them once you start eating them. And with problem foods, you might feel like you're out of control when you eat them, or you feel like they are causing you to gain weight even when you're good with the rest of your diet, or you just can't resist ordering them for takeout or whatever reason. And specifically, I wanted to talk to you about strategies for dealing with problem foods when you're trying to lose weight. And today I have a study for you that just came out, so that's pretty cool. And it looked at almost 200 overweight and obese women who were put on a diet for a year. So this study followed women on their diets for a very long time, so it's cool to have a data set like this. And these women were put on 3 different kinds of diets. This isn't super relevant for the actual problem foods question, but just in case you're curious, a third of them were told to eat less, so just the standard dieting advice of eat less to lose weight. Another third of them were told to portion control by looking at the calorie density of foods. And the third group had pre-portioned out meals. But the point is, this study covered a lot of different diet types, so hopefully if you are currently trying to lose weight, then the results of this study will be relevant for you. And first, the researchers had these women fill out lists of their problem foods. So write down the list of foods that they feel like are causing them problems or preventing them from weight loss. And they also asked the women to write down the strategies that they used to deal with these problem foods in order to lose weight. And importantly, the researchers looked at which of these strategies for dealing with problem foods was actually related to losing more weight over the course of this year on their diets. In case any of you are curious, the most common problem foods that were listed were pizza, ice cream, chips, cookies, and chocolate. So I imagine this might cover a lot of your problem foods and are probably pretty popular ones because these are hyperpalatable foods that are difficult to not eat, essentially. And most of the women on average had 7 problem foods, so 7 foods that they considered to be problematic for their weight loss. And a really interesting thing about these problem foods that the women were choosing is that they tended to list, in addition to these obvious categories of super sweet and high fat things, people tended to list way more starchy carbohydrate foods as problem foods than they did things like meat and cheese. So it seems like problem foods are what you think are problematic, but aren't necessarily the things that are actually bad for weight loss, because as you may know from all the other studies I've been going over on this channel, starchy foods are actually much better for weight loss than meat and cheese. You're much more likely to lose weight if you increase your starch intake than if you increase your meat and cheese intake, and you're much more likely to gain weight if you increase your meat and cheese intake and decrease your starch intake. So that's just kind of an interesting aside that maybe foods that you think are a problem might actually not be that problematic, like bread and rice and oats and pasta and that kind of thing. And another thing that I think is super cool that this study found just on the way to their main results is that the people who had the most problem foods listed were the ones who had attempted weight loss the most times in the past. So had tried to lose weight a bunch over many years and tried many diets, and people who were highly restrained eaters. And restrained eating, as you may remember from my last video on it, which is up here and I'll put in the caption below, is when people try to restrict their food intake or have food rules or just are generally trying to be really in control of their eating in order to lose weight generally. So people who are restrained eaters and people who have tried weight loss a lot in the past tend to have more problem foods. And now for the strategies for dealing with problem foods, they fell into 3 general categories. The first was avoiding them. So this could be not buying the foods in the first place, so not buying pizza and ice cream at the store, or not getting takeout or going to restaurants, or not keeping the foods around, so not making them accessible. For example, not keeping them in your car or not bringing them to the office with you. So these are the avoidance strategies for dealing with problem foods. The second category was generally under the umbrella of portion control. And this includes allowing yourself to have small portions of your problem foods, so maybe have 1 slice of pizza instead of having 3 or 4. Or it could include things like having low-calorie substitutes for your problem foods, so maybe having a vegetable pizza instead of a pepperoni and sausage pizza or something like that. And the last strategy that they looked at was social support. So this is essentially relying on your friends or family or coworkers to help you avoid eating your problem foods. So this may come as a surprise to you, but avoidance actually didn't work. So not keeping the food around and not buying it actually did not help you lose weight. And I think there are two main reasons that avoiding problem foods doesn't actually work. And the first is that you really can't avoid them all the time, unless they're really weird problem foods that you never encounter out and about. But like, unless you're in the weird situation of being stuck in your house all the time like we are right now, then you're probably going to come across your problem foods at office parties, or maybe someone brings a cake into the office for someone's birthday, or maybe when you're out with your friends at a restaurant or a dinner party, or maybe when you're at the store and your willpower is low and you see ice cream, it's like hard not to buy. I think when this happens and you are exposed to your problem food after avoiding it for so long, you're much more likely to binge on it and way overeat than if you just allowed yourself to have a little bit of that problem food the whole time. And the second reason that avoiding problem foods doesn't work may be due to the fact that when you are specifically craving something like chocolate, for example, you're probably going to try to eat a bunch of other stuff to kick that craving and to like scratch that itch, but none of it will actually give you the taste you were looking for. So it's likely that you're gonna have to eat more of all these other replacements, like maybe you're gonna have sugar-free ice cream or low-fat candy or something to try to kick this chocolate craving, when really, if you just eaten the chocolate, then you would have been satisfied with less eating overall. So you're probably eating more calories in your pursuit of this chocolatey reward when you could have just done it more efficiently by eating the chocolate. And another one that didn't work was social support. So this may not be too surprising because you can't have your diet friends around you all the time when you're making your food choices, and or maybe your family doesn't feel like helping you avoid foods at every single meal. So it looks like relying on others to help you avoid problem foods is not a very useful strategy long term. So that's a lot of bad news so far, but now for the good news. The strategies that did work were portion control strategies. So, for example, eating just a small amount of your problem food, allowing yourself to have it here and there as a treat, or just trying to eat it less frequently, was related to more weight loss over the course of a year, as was having lower calorie substitutes for your problem foods. And I think this makes a lot of sense because if you never allow yourself to have the food or are relying on others to stop you, then it sort of becomes a forbidden fruit kind of thing. Like if you are not allowed to ever have it, like if that's your goal to never have the problem food, then it becomes something you really want because you can't have it. It's just how we're wired. But with portion control strategies, it takes some of the forbiddenness out of the equation because you can still have it occasionally. It's just not something you're having all the time. And now time for more of my take on these results and in general how to deal with problem foods. And I'm just going to start by saying I don't suggest you diet at all. Like, I don't suggest you do the things that the women did in this study where they ate less or had pre-portioned meals or did portion control. But you probably already know that. I am all about intuitive eating and I think it's really effective for weight loss, but I have other videos on that if you're interested. But despite me personally not being in favor of diets, I want to provide information that is useful for everyone, regardless of where you are on the diet spectrum. The main takeaway here is that it looks like the best strategy for dealing with those problem foods like pizza and cookies and chocolate and ice cream is to allow yourself to have them sometimes, or to find good tasting substitutes that have either healthier ingredients or fewer calories. And I have more thoughts on what I think is actually the best way to deal with problem foods. That's not even directly related to the study, but I'll be talking about that more in my coaching program that I am currently working on. Since I mentioned doing mini coaching in my last video, a lot of you have asked me about doing more serious coaching or programs. So if you're interested in that, just head to my website. I have a wait list where you can sign up if you're interested, or you can just shoot me a message to ask what it would be like, or if you want to know about my personal opinions on how to deal with problem foods even outside coaching, feel free to message me. My goal is to help you, especially during quarantine. We all have a little bit more time on our hands and it's a good time to change your eating habits if you want to learn to lose weight without obsessing over food, without dieting, and just maintain it effortlessly. So stay tuned for that, and I hope that this video could be useful for you regardless of where you are on the diet spectrum. Thanks so much for watching, and if you want to support me, please like, subscribe, share, or head over to my Patreon. And hope you're staying safe and sane as possible during these crazy times. And I will see you next time.